She was invisible. That was the point of the uniform. The powder blue dress, the white apron, the sensible shoes. It was camouflage. Amara had learned a long time ago that in a city like Seoul, if you were poor, foreign, and a woman, the safest thing you could be was invisible. She kept her head down. She scrubbed the marble floors of buildings she could never afford to enter, and she sent every spare one back home to a family that thought she was living the dream. She wasn't living a dream, she was surviving a grind. But on a humid Tuesday in the Gangnam district, invisibility stopped being an option. It started with a screech of tires that sounded like the world tearing in half. Amara was waiting at a crosswalk, clutching a bag of discount groceries, when she saw it. A black sedan, gleaming and expensive, was idling at the red light. The back window was down, and an elderly woman with silver hair pinned in an elegant bun was gazing out, looking peaceful. Too peaceful, because barreling down the intersecting street was a delivery truck that wasn't slowing down. The driver wasn't looking at the road, he was looking at his phone. Or maybe he was looking exactly where he was supposed to. Most people froze, and that's the thing about real danger. It doesn't trigger a hero complex. It triggers paralysis. The crowd on the sidewalk gasped. Phones came out to record the disaster, but nobody moved, except Amara. She didn't think. She didn't calculate the physics of a 5-ton truck versus a human body. She just saw a grandmother who looked exactly like the one she'd lost 2 years ago. Amara dropped her groceries and sprinted. She hit the side of the black sedan just as the truck roared into the intersection. She didn't try to stop the car. She dove through the open back window, tackling the elderly woman, shoving her down onto the floorboard just as metal screamed against metal. The impact was a thunderclap. The sedan spun, glass shattering like diamond rain. Amara felt a sharp, hot agony in her shoulder, and then the world went black for a second. When she opened her eyes, the smell of gasoline and expensive leather filled her nose. She was pinned awkwardly on the floor of the car, shielding the old woman with her own body. "Ma'am?" Amara wheezed, her voice shaking. "Are you okay?" The woman beneath her blinked. Madame Kim, the matriarch of the Golden Dragon Syndicate, had faced knife-wielding assassins and police raids, but she had never looked as shocked as she did looking up at this young black woman in a torn maid's uniform. "You," Madame Kim whispered, touching the blood on Amara's temple. "You jumped. We have to get out." Amara winced, trying to move. Her arms screamed in protest. "The gas!" Before she could finish, the back door was ripped off its hinges, not opened, ripped. A wall of men in black suits surrounded the wreckage, guns drawn, shouting orders into earpieces. But the man who tore the door off, he was different. He was the center of the storm. Tall, wearing a suit that cost more than Amara's entire life earnings, with a jagged black tattoo climbing up the side of his neck like smoke. Kangdae, the prince of Seoul's underworld. He didn't check the perimeter. He reached in, his eyes wide with a terror the city had never seen, and pulled his mother out. "Hyoma!" he roared, his voice cracking. He checked her for wounds, his hands shaking. "Are you hit? Did they get you?" "I'm fine," Madame Kim said, her voice regaining its steel. She pointed a trembling finger back into the crushed car. "Because of her." Kangdae turned. For the first time he saw Amara. She was trying to crawl out, clutching her bleeding shoulder, glass in her hair. She looked up, and their eyes locked. His were cold, dark and terrifying, the eyes of a man who killed problems. And right now he was trying to figure out if she was a savior or a complication. He didn't offer her a hand. He grabbed her uninjured arm and hauled her out with a grip that bruised. "Who are you?" he growled, pulling her close. Who sent you? Kang Dae, his mother snapped, slapping his chest. She saved my life. Look at her, she's bleeding. Amara tried to pull away. I have to go to work, she stammered, the adrenaline crashing. My groceries. Work? Kang Dae looked at her like she was speaking an alien language. You just intercepted an assassination attempt on the Kim family. You think you're going to work? I need my job, Amara insisted, swaying on her feet. Please, just let me go. You aren't going anywhere, Madame Kim declared, stepping forward and gripping Amara's hand. You are coming home with us. I can't, Amara started, but the world tilted sideways. The last thing she saw was the dragon tattoo on Kang Dae's neck, rippling as he stepped forward to catch her before she hit the pavement. Waking up in the Kim estate was like waking up on a different planet. The ceiling was high and hand-painted. The sheets were silk. Amara sat up, gasping, and instantly regretted it as pain shot through her bandaged shoulder. She wasn't in a hospital, she was in a fortress. She swung her legs out of bed, looking for her uniform, but it was gone. In its place was a silk robe. The door opened, and Kang Dae walked in. He wasn't wearing the jacket now, just a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing muscular forearms and a Rolex that ticked louder than the room's silence. He didn't knock. He just stood there, staring at her. "Where are my clothes?" Amara asked, pulling the robe tighter. "I need to leave. My landlord triggers eviction if I'm not back by." "Your rent is paid for the next 5 years," Kang Dae said, his voice flat. "Your landlord has been informed you are on an extended sabbatical. And your debt, the hospital bills for your father?" "Cleared?" Amara froze. "How do you know about my father?" "I know everything," he said, stepping closer. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with a dangerous electricity. "I know you work 3 jobs. I know you walk home because you save the bus fare. I know you're invisible to everyone in this city. Except now, you're visible to me." "Is that a threat?" Amara lifted her chin. She was terrified, but she'd spent her life facing down men who thought they owned her because she was poor. She wasn't going to cower now. Something flickered in Kang Dae's eyes, respect, or maybe annoyance. "It's a fact. The men who tried to kill my mother failed because of you. They will wonder who you are. They will think you are a bodyguard, a secret agent, or a new player. They will come for you to get to us." "Leaving this house is a death sentence. So I'm a prisoner?" "You are a guest," he corrected, "under my protection." "I didn't ask for your protection." "You bought it," he snarled softly, leaning down until his face was inches from hers. "When you threw yourself in front of a truck for my mother. Nobody touches what is mine. And as of yesterday, you are mine to protect." The days turned into a strange, tense routine. Amara was trapped in a golden cage. The house was filled with servants, but they wouldn't let her lift a finger. It drove her crazy. She was a maid. Her hands itched to work, to be useful. One night, unable to sleep, she wandered down to the massive industrial kitchen. She found a pile of vegetables left out for the morning prep and started chopping. It was rhythmic, soothing. "You hold the knife wrong." She spun around. Kang Dae was leaning against the doorframe. He looked exhausted, the shadows under his eyes deep. He walked over, took the knife from her hand, and demonstrated a chop. "Knuckles out. Guide the blade." "I know how to cook," she muttered, taking the knife back. "I'm making stew. It helps me think." "Make enough for 2, he said. They sat at the kitchen island at 2 a.m., eating stew out of simple bowls. The silence wasn't as sharp as before. Kang Dae watched her eat. "Why did you do it?" he asked suddenly. "You don't know us. You know what we are. People cross the street to avoid my shadow. You jumped into a car with it." "She looked like my grandmother," Amara said softly. "And nobody deserves to die alone in a metal box." She looked at his neck. "Does it hurt? The tattoo?" He touched the ink unconsciously.
"The needle hurts less than the reason for it." He pulled his collar down a fraction, revealing a thick, jagged scar underneath the dragon's tail. "I was 16. A rival clan came for my father. I took a knife meant for his throat. The tattoo covers the ruin." Amara stopped eating. He wasn't just a monster. He was a son who had done exactly what she had done, sacrificed his body for his family. "You saved him," she whispered. "I survived him," Kangde corrected, his eyes dark. "There is a difference." The shift happened slowly. Amara stopped being the guest and started being the only person in the house who didn't fear him. She argued with him about his sleeping habits. She forced him to eat breakfast. She made Madame Kim laugh, something the staff hadn't heard in years. And Kangde, he started coming home earlier.
He started watching her, not with suspicion, but with a hunger he didn't know how to name. But the world outside the gates was burning. The Serpent Clan, the rivals who staged the accident, were furious. They had missed their shot at the Queen, and they knew the prince was distracted. They knew about the Maid. It happened on a rainy Thursday. Madame Kim had insisted on taking Amara to the garden to see the koi pond. The security detail was tight, but not tight enough. The new gardener, a man Amara had smiled at that morning, wasn't a gardener. Amara saw the reflection of the gun in the water before she saw the man. "Down!" she screamed, shoving Madame Kim behind a stone pagoda. The gunshot cracked the air, chipping the stone inches from Amara's head. She didn't have a weapon, but she had the garden hose.
She twisted the high-pressure nozzle and sprayed the assassin full in the face, blinding him for a split second. It was just enough time. Kangde didn't run into the garden. He erupted into it. He moved like a blur of violence, tackling the assassin. It was brutal, fast, and terrifying. When it was over, Kangde stood over the intruder, his chest heaving, his knuckles bloody. He turned to look for his mother, but his eyes landed on Amara. She was shaking, wet and muddy, but she was standing protectively in front of Madame Kim, holding a garden trowel like a dagger. Kangde walked over to her. The guards expected him to yell about the security breach. Instead, he grabbed Amara's face with both hands. "Did he touch you?" he demanded, his voice raw. "Did he hurt you?" "I'm okay," she whispered, her heart hammering against his chest.
"I told you I would keep you safe," he choked out, his forehead resting against hers. "I failed." "You came," she said. "You came for us." "I came for you," he admitted, the words slipping out before he could stop them. "God help me, Amara, I came for you." That night, the war came home. The assassin in the garden was just the distraction. The Serpent Clan had bought off the head of security. At midnight, the power in the estate was cut. The electronic gates opened. Amara woke up to a hand over her mouth. It was Kangde. "Quiet," he whispered in the dark. He pressed a heavy, cold pistol into her hand. "Do you know how to use this?" "Point and shoot?" She trembled. "Safety off. Aim for the center. Don't hesitate." He pulled her out of bed. "They are in the house. They want my mother."
"And they want you." "Why me?" "Because they know," he said, dragging her toward the hidden panic room panel in the wall. "They know you are the only thing I have left to lose." "I'm not going in there," Amara said, planting her feet. "Where is your mother?" "My men are getting her. You go in the panic room." "No," she said, "I'm not hiding in a box while you fight an army." "Amara," he hissed, the sounds of gunfire echoing from the floor below. This isn't a debate. I can be ruthless, I can be a killer, but I cannot be those things if I am terrified that you are breathing your last breath. Get in the room. I saved your mother twice, she yelled back. I'm not a damsel, Kangday. I'm the woman who jumped in front of a truck. Let me help. Before he could answer, the bedroom door exploded inward. 3 men in tactical gear stormed in.
Kangday shoved Amara behind him and fired. 2 went down. The third lunged with a knife. Kangday caught the blade with his forearm, the same scar, and drove his knee into the man's gut. But a 4th man appeared in the doorway, leveling a shotgun at Kangday's exposed back. Amara didn't think. She raised the gun he had given her. Her hands were shaking, but her vision was clear. She squeezed the trigger. The kickback nearly knocked her over. The shot went wide, hitting the doorframe, but it distracted the gunman long enough. Kangday spun and finished him. He looked at Amara, wide-eyed. She was holding the smoking gun, chest heaving. She looked wild and beautiful and terrifying. "We have to get to your mother," she said, her voice steady now. They fought their way to the West Wing. It was a blur of chaos. But when they reached Madame Kim's suite, they found the traitor, the head of security, holding a gun to the old woman's head. "Drop it, Kangday," the traitor screamed, "or the matriarch dies." Kangday froze. His gun was raised, but he couldn't take the shot. The angle was too bad. "And the girl!" the traitor sneered, looking at Amara. "Send the girl over here. The serpent boss wants a trophy." Kangday's face went stone cold. "Take me," he said. "Let the women go." "No deals," the traitor yelled. "The girl, now!" Amara stepped forward. "Okay," she said, putting her hands up. "Amara, no," Kangday growled, a sound of pure agony. "It's okay," she said, locking eyes with him. She walked slowly toward the traitor. "I'm just a maid, right? I'm nobody." She got close. The traitor smirked, shifting the gun slightly away from Madame Kim to aim at Amara. "That's right, just a maid." "Actually," Amara said, her eyes flashing fire, "I'm the daughter-in-law." She dropped to the floor. It was a move they hadn't rehearsed, a move born of pure instinct. As she dropped, revealing the traitor's chest, Kangday fired. The bullet flew over Amara's head and struck the traitor, dead center. Silence fell over the room. Kangday didn't check the body. He dropped his gun and fell to his knees, pulling Amara into his arms. He buried his face in her neck, shaking uncontrollably. "Don't ever," he rasped. "Do that again." "I had to," she whispered, holding him back. "I knew you wouldn't miss." "I never miss," he said, pulling back to look at her. "But I have never been so scared in my life." The aftermath was swift.
The failed raid broke the Serpent clan. Kangday didn't just defeat them, he dismantled them systematically and publicly, ensuring that no one would ever look at the Kim family, or the guests of the Kim family, with anything but terror again. 6 months later, the press was gathered outside the Kim estate. Rumors were flying. Was the matriarch stepping down? Was the prince declaring war? Kangday stepped onto the podium. He wasn't wearing the black suit of a killer today. He was wearing navy blue. He looked different, lighter. "There have been questions about the leadership of the Golden Dragon," he spoke into the microphone. "My mother remains the head of this family, but I am announcing a change in my own life." He turned and held out a hand. Amara stepped out. She wasn't wearing a maid's uniform.
She was wearing a structured white dress that made her look like royalty. She took his hand. "This is Amara," Kangday said to the world. "She is not my guest. She is not my weakness." He looked at her, and the cameras caught the look, the total, devastating adoration of a man who had found his salvation. "She is my strength, and she is my future wife." The flashbulbs erupted like a supernova. Later, on the balcony, away from the madness, Amara leaned against the railing. "You know," she smiled, "I still haven't finished paying off my student loans. I was going to be a nurse." "You can be whatever you want," Kangdai said, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "But you're stuck being my wife." "A Mafia wife," she mused. "My mother is going to have a heart attack." "Your mother is currently downstairs drinking tea with my mother and planning the floral arrangements." Kangdai kissed her cheek. "They are getting along terrifyingly well." Amara laughed, and the sound drifted over the estate walls, lighter than air. She looked at the tattoo on his neck. It didn't look like a warning anymore. It looked like a shield. "I saved you," she whispered, thinking back to the crash. "No." Kangdai turned her around and kissed her, deep and slow. "I was dead for 10 years, Amara. You didn't just save my life. You woke me up." The city of Seoul kept moving, oblivious to the miracles in its midst. But in the fortress on the hill, the dragon and the maid stood together, ready to face whatever came next. Not as master and servant, but as equals. And that, Amara thought, was a story worth telling. You thought that was the end. You thought a press conference and a diamond ring were enough to silence the devils in Seoul. Oh, no, that was just the opening act. The cameras turned off, the reporters went home, and that is when the real war began, because in the world of the Golden Dragon, happiness isn't a reward, it's a target. The peace lasted exactly 48 hours. It broke on a rainy Tuesday, the kind of weather that washes the sins off the pavement, but leaves the grime in the gutters. Amara was in the west wing of the estate, standing on a stool while 3 seamstresses pinned a traditional hanbok around her. It was silk embroidered with golden phoenixes, the symbol of the queen. Madame Kim sat in the corner, sipping tea, looking pleased. "It fits," Madame Kim nodded. "The elders will hate it. It is perfect." Amara winced as a pin pricked her side. "The elders hate me, Madame. I don't think the dress is going to change that." "They hate change," Madame Kim corrected, setting her cup down with a sharp clink. "They are old men who think blood purity is more important than loyalty. They will learn or they will be removed." Before Amara could reply, the heavy oak doors swung open. It wasn't Kangdai. It was Mr. Park, the head butler, his face the color of ash. "Madame," he whispered, his voice trembling. "A package from the council." The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. The council, the 7 shadow lords who controlled the funding, the territories, the very spine of the syndicate. Even Kangdai answered to them. Mr. Park held out a small lacquered box. Madame Kim stood up, her face hardening into a mask of stone. She opened it. Inside, resting on red velvet, was a dead sparrow, and tied to its leg was a note written in elegant calligraphy. "The bird that flies too high burns its wings." Amara stepped down from the stool, the silk rustling. "Is that a threat?" "No," Madame Kim closed the box. "It is an eviction notice." At that exact moment, the estate alarms screamed. Not the perimeter breach alarm, the internal breach alarm. Amara didn't have to ask what to do. The training from the last few months kicked in. She ripped off the heavy ceremonial robe, revealing the simple slip dress underneath, and grabbed the letter opener from the table. Madame Kim was already moving toward the panic button, but the lights died before she could reach it. Darkness swallowed the room. "Amara," Madame Kim's voice was calm, terrifyingly so. "Get behind the desk." "Not without you," Amara hissed, feeling her way through the dark. The door burst open again, Flashlights cut through the gloom, blinding them. Men in tactical gear, no crests, no identification. These weren't street thugs like the Serpent Clan. These were pros, the council's cleaners. "Secure the girl," a voice distorted by a mask ordered. "Leave the old woman." Two men lunged for Amara. She slashed out with the letter opener, catching one in the exposed wrist between his glove and sleeve. He grunted, dropping his flashlight, but the second man backhanded her. The blow sent her spinning into the bookshelf. Pain exploded in her jaw, tasting like copper. They dragged her up by her hair. "Let her go!" Madame Kim screamed, throwing a porcelain vase. It shattered harmlessly against a tactical vest. One of the men shoved the matriarch down hard. She hit the floor with a sickening thud and didn't move. "No!" Amara screamed, kicking and thrashing. "Madame Kim!" A needle pierced her neck. Cold fire spread through her veins. Her vision blurred, the room tilting sideways. The last thing she heard was the sound of heavy boots dragging her away, and the terrifying silence from the corner where the mother of the man she loved lay, motionless. Amara woke up to the smell of salt water and rust. She was tied to a metal chair in what looked like an abandoned shipping container. The floor was swaying gently. A boat. She was on a boat. "She's awake." Amara lifted her head. Sitting across from her, calmly peeling an apple with a switchblade, was an old man in a pristine white suit, Chairman Han, the head of the council, the man who had smiled at her engagement party and called her a delightful surprise. "Where is Kangdae?" Amara croaked. "Where is Madame Kim?" "Madame Kim is likely in a coma," Chairman Han said, slicing a piece of apple. "At her age, hip fractures are complicated. As for Kangdae, he is currently tearing Seoul apart looking for you. He's burning his own city to the ground. Predictable. Why?" Amara pulled at the ropes. They were tight, biting into her wrists. "Because you are a stain," Han said, simply, eating the apple slice. "The Golden Dragon has a lineage that goes back 300 years. We do not dilute it with help. We do not marry maids. We do not marry foreigners. We certainly do not marry women who make our leader look soft." "Soft?" Amara laughed, a dry, broken sound. "He put a bullet in a traitor's chest for me. That didn't look soft." "That is exactly the point." Han stood up, wiping the blade. "He is emotional, unstable. He acts for you, not for the business. Today we correct that. We will send him your body, and he will grieve. Then in his rage, he will go to war with a rival we have framed. He will die in battle, a hero, and the council will pick a new heir, a controllable heir." Amara's blood ran cold. It wasn't just about her. It was a coup. They were going to kill Kangdae. "You're going to kill him," she whispered. "We are going to let him kill himself," Han corrected. He checked his watch. "We are in international waters. In 10 minutes, this container will be pushed overboard. No evidence, no body, just a tragic disappearance." He turned to leave. "Goodbye, Miss Brooks. You were a very good maid. You should have stayed one." The heavy iron door clanged shut. The lock turned. Amara was alone. The container groaned. She could feel the vibration of a crane latching onto the roof. They were lifting it. Panic, cold and sharp, tried to seize her throat. Think, Amara." She looked around. The container was empty except for the chair and a rusted toolbox in the corner that was just out of reach. She rocked the chair. It was bolted to the floor. The container lurched upward. She was airborne. "Come on!" She gritted her teeth, sliding her wrists against the jagged edge of the metal armrest. It cut her skin, but she didn't stop. She sawed at the ropes, ignoring the blood slicking her hands. The crane swung. The container hit the side of the ship with a deafening gong. The impact threw her sideways, loosening the bolt on the right leg of the chair. That was it. She threw her weight to the right, slamming the chair leg against the floor. Again, the bolt snapped. She was loose, still tied to the chair, but mobile. She hopped, shuffled toward the toolbox. The floor dropped out from under her sensation. Gravity shifted. The container was falling. Crash. Water roared. The container hit the ocean. It didn't sink immediately. It was airtight. But it was leaking. Water sprayed in through the seams, icy and dark. Amara smashed the toolbox open with her bound feet. A wrench, a screwdriver. She grabbed the screwdriver with her tied hands, maneuvering it awkwardly to the knot at her ankles. The water was rising fast, ankle deep, knee deep. She stabbed at the ropes. One strand snapped, then another. She kicked her legs free. She stood up, the chair still attached to her back, and slammed the back of the chair against the wall of the container, shattering the wood, freeing her arms. The water was at her waist. She scrambled to the side of the container. There was a small ventilation hatch near the roof. It was rusted shut. She jammed the screwdriver into the gap and pried. The metal groaned. The water was at her chest. "Open, damn you!" she screamed, putting every ounce of fear and rage into her muscles. The hatch popped open. Amara took a deep breath just as the water hit the ceiling, filling the space. She kicked upward, squeezing through the narrow hole, scraping her skin raw. She burst out into the dark, freezing ocean. Above her, the ship's lights were fading as it steamed away. They thought she was drowning in a steel coffin. Amara treaded water, gasping, the salt stinging her eyes. She was miles from shore, alone, in the dark. But she wasn't just a maid anymore. She was the woman who loved a dragon. She saw a blinking light in the distance, a buoy. She started to swim. 3 days later, Seoul. The city was silent. It was the silence of a graveyard. The Kim estate was on lockdown. Kang Dae sat in the center of the living room. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. He was still wearing the shirt he had on when she was taken, now stained with the blood of the 10 men he had interrogated and tortured in the last 72 hours. None of them knew where she was. He held her engagement ring in his hand, turning it over and over. "Sir," Mr. Park entered, his voice hushed. "The council is here. They are demanding an audience." Kang Dae stood up. His eyes were dead. "Let them in." Chairman Han walked in, flanked by 4 bodyguards. He looked solemn. Fake solemn. "Kang Dae," he said, bowing slightly. "We heard the news. The search has been unsuccessful." "Get to the point, Han," Kang Dae said, his voice like gravel. "We must face reality," Han sighed. "She is gone. It is a tragedy, but the business suffers. The stocks are dropping. You look weak, chasing a ghost. It is time to stop the search and focus on the Serpent Clan. We have intel they took her." "The Serpent Clan," Kang Dae repeated. "You think the serpents took her?" "We have proof," Han signaled one of his men, who pulled out a folder. Photos of her being loaded into a serpent boat. Kang Dae didn't look at the folder. He looked at Han's shoes. "Those are new shoes, Chairman." Han blinked. "Excuse me?" "Italian leather." Hand-stitched, Kang Dae walked closer. "My mother gave me a gift once, a pair of shoes just like that. She told me that a man who walks through a slaughterhouse doesn't wear white soles." Kang Dae pointed to the tiny, faint smear of red clay on the heel of Han's pristine shoe. "The red clay from the Riverside Warehouse District. That's serpent territory, but the serpents don't use the warehouses anymore. I burned them down last month." Han stiffened. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm implying," Kang Dae drew his gun, the movement so fast it blurred, "that you were there, recently." Han's bodyguards moved, but Kang Dae didn't flinch. "Kill me," he said to them, "and I guarantee every single person you have ever met, loved or spoken to, will be hunted down by my shadows. Do you want to die for an old man?
Do you want to live? The bodyguards hesitated. That hesitation was all Kang Day needed. He pistol-whipped the nearest guard, spun, and kicked the second in the throat. The other two backed down, hands raised. Kang Day grabbed Chairman Han by the throat and slammed him onto the coffee table. Glass shattered. "Where is she?" Kang Day roared, the monster finally breaking the leash. "She's dead!" Han wheezed, smiling through bloody teeth. "She's fish food. I dropped her in the Yellow Sea myself. You are too late, boy. You are—" Bang! The front doors of the estate flew open. Every head turned. Standing there, leaning against the doorframe, was a vision from hell. Her hair was matted with salt. Her skin was pale and bruised. She was wearing a stolen fisherman's oversized coat and boots that were too big. She looked like a shipwreck.
But she was standing. "Amara!" Kang Day dropped Han, his gun clattering to the floor. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. She limped into the room. She looked at the bodyguards, who stepped aside, terrified. She looked at Chairman Han, who was gasping on the floor, eyes bulging, and then she looked at Kang Day. "You have a terrible security system," she rasped, her voice cracked from the salt water. Kang Day didn't speak. He crossed the room in 2 strides and crashed into her. He didn't hug her gently this time. He grabbed her like he was trying to merge their atoms, lifting her off her feet, burying his face in her salty, dirty hair. A sound tore out of his chest, half sob, half roar. I thought... He shook, his tears soaking her coat. "I know." She held him tight, her own tears cutting through the salt on her face. "I swam back. I caught a fishing boat. I walked from the harbour." Kang Day pulled back, framing her face, checking every inch of her. "You swam back?" "I had a wedding to get to," she smiled weakly. Then her eyes shifted to Han. The warmth vanished. "He told me you were soft. He told me I made you weak." Kang Day turned slowly. The look on his face wasn't human anymore. It was pure, distilled abyss. He walked back to Han. "She survived the ocean," Kang Day whispered to the old man. "She survived the fall. She survived you." He picked Han up by the collar. "Wait!" Han screamed. "I am the chairman. You can't touch me. The council will destroy you." "I am the golden dragon," Kang Day said, his voice deadly calm. "And you touched my wife." He didn't kill him. Death was too easy. "Get him out of here," Kang Day ordered his men.
"Take him to the basement! Keep him alive! I want him to watch the wedding! I want him to watch us rule for the next 50 years from a cell!" As they dragged the screaming chairman away, Amara's legs finally gave out. Kang Day caught her. He picked her up, bridal style, holding her close to his heart. "You're soaking wet," he murmured, walking towards the stairs. "You're ruining the rugs." "Put it on my tab," she mumbled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Is your mother okay?" "She woke up an hour ago," Kang Day said softly. "She's asking for you. She said she won't take her medicine until her daughter-in-law gives it to her." Amara closed her eyes. "Take me to her." The wedding. It wasn't the quiet affair they had planned. After the coup, after the purge of the council, Kang Day decided to send a message.
The wedding was held in the courtyard of the estate, under the ancient cherry blossom trees. But the guest list was different. It wasn't just the crime lords and politicians. In the front row, wearing their Sunday best, were the other maids, the janitors, the street vendors Amara used to buy vegetables from, her old landlord, looking terrified and confused. Amara walked down the aisle. She wasn't wearing the traditional hanbok the council had hated. She was wearing a white dress that was simple, elegant, and had a back revealing the faint, healing scars from the shipping container. She didn't hide them. They were her vows written in flesh, Madam Kim sat in a wheelchair in the front row, weeping openly, holding the hand of Amara's mother, who had been flown in first class. When Amara reached the altar, Kang Dae was waiting. He looked sharp, dangerous, and devastatingly handsome, but when he took her hands, his grip was shaking. "Do you," the officiant asked, "take this man, his burdens, his wars, and his life as your own?" Amara looked at the tattoo on his neck. She looked at the scars on his hands. She looked at the man who would burn the world to keep her warm. "I take the war," she whispered, "and I take the man." Kang Dae didn't wait for permission. He kissed her, and for a moment, the Mafia, the money, the blood, and the fear didn't exist. There was just a boy and a girl who had found each other in the wreckage of a car crash. As they turned to face the crowd, the new king and queen of the underworld, Amara leaned close to his ear. "So," she whispered, "what do we do now?" Kang Dae smiled, and it was a smile that promised trouble. "Now," he squeezed her hand, "now we rebuild, and we make sure that nobody, ever again, thinks they can make you invisible." Amara looked out at the city of Seoul, glittering in the distance. She wasn't invisible. She was the fire that had forged the dragon. "I'm ready," she said. And she was. 5 years, that's how long the peace lasted. In the underworld, 5 years is an eternity. It was enough time for Kang Dae and Amara to build an empire that stretched from Seoul to Busan. It was enough time for the city to forget that their queen used to scrub floors. It was enough time for Amara to forget that happiness in this life is usually just a loan with high interest. The interest came due on a snowy night in December. The estate was quiet. The guards were patrolling the perimeter, their breath misting in the cold air. Inside, the fire was roaring. Amara sat on the rug, laughing as she watched Kang Dae, the feared dragon of Seoul, clumsily trying to assemble a plastic toy castle for their 3-year-old son, Gino. It was perfect. It was domestic. It was a lie. The phone on the heavy oak desk didn't ring. It buzzed once, a single, encrypted red line that only 3 people in the world had the number for. Kang Dae froze. He looked at Amara, his eyes darkening instantly. The father disappeared. The dragon returned. He walked to the desk and picked it up. "Speak." Amara watched his back. She saw the muscles in his shoulders not tight enough to snap bone. She saw his hand grip the edge of the desk until the wood splintered. He didn't say a word. He just listened for 10 seconds, then hung up. He didn't turn around. "Kang Dae?" Amara asked, standing up. Her heart suddenly racing. "Who was that?" "Pack a bag," he said, his voice unrecognizable. It wasn't angry, it was hollow. "Take Gino, go to the panic room, lock the door. Do not open it for anyone, not even me." "What? Why?" She grabbed his arm, spinning him around. "Talk to me. Is it the Serpent Clan? Is it a coup?" "No." He looked at her, and for the first time in 5 years, Amara saw fear. Real, paralyzed fear. "It's worse." Before she could ask, what could possibly be worse than a coup, the front gates didn't open. They exploded. The blast shook the house, shattering the windows. The alarms screamed. But these weren't standard alarms, these were air raid sirens. Amara grabbed Gino, shielding him from the falling glass. "Kang Dae!" But Kang Dae wasn't looking at the gates. He was looking at the front door. "They're already here!" The heavy double doors swung open, no tactical gear, no guns drawn. Just one man. He was old, leaning on a cane made of black jade. He wore a kimono that looked older than the house itself. Behind him stood an army of men in white suits, silent as ghosts. The Yakuza, the High Council of Tokyo. Kang Dai stepped in front of Amara and his son, drawing his weapon. "You have no business in Seoul, Lord Tanaka." The old man ignored the gun. He ignored Kang Dai entirely. His cloudy eyes drifted past the dragon and locked onto Amara. He hobbled forward, his cane clicking on the marble floor. "One more step and I put a bullet in your head," Kang Dai warned, cocking the hammer. "Put the gun down, boy," the old man wheezed, his voice dry as parchment. "You do not shoot the family." "I have no family in Japan," Kang Dai snarled. "I wasn't talking to you." The old man smiled, revealing gold teeth. He stopped 5 feet from Amara. He looked her up and down, tears filling his old eyes. Then slowly, painfully, the lord of the Japanese Yakuza bowed. He bowed low, his forehead touching the floor. Behind him, his entire army of white-suited killers dropped to their knees, bowing in unison. The sound of hundreds of knees hitting the stone echoed like thunder. Kang Dai's gun wavered. "What is this?" The old man lifted his head, looking straight at the former maid. "We have searched for 20 years, the old man whispered. "We thought the Americans had killed you along with your mother, but here you are." Amara clutched her son tighter, stepping back. "I don't know who you are. I'm nobody." "My father was a mechanic from Detroit." "Your father was a bodyguard who stole you to keep you safe from your birthright," the old man corrected. He reached into his robe and pulled out a photo. It was old, black and white. It showed a beautiful woman holding a baby. The woman wore a necklace, a distinctive, twisted gold locket. Amara's hand flew to her throat, to the locket she had worn every day of her life, the only thing her mother had left her. "My name is Tanaka," the old man said softly. "I am the Emperor of the Eastern Shadows. And you, my child, you are not Amara Brooks." He held out his hand. "You are Akira Tanaka, the sole heir to the throne of Tokyo." The old man's eyes shifted to Kang Dai, cold and dismissive. "And you, Korean boy, have married a goddess without permission, by the laws of the old code. The penalty is death." The Yakuza soldiers behind him stood up, hundreds of katanas sliding from their sheaths with a collective hiss. Kang Dai raised his gun, stepping between the army and his wife. He was one man against an empire. Amara looked at the photo. She looked at her husband, who was ready to die. She looked at the old man who offered her a kingdom. "Choose, princess," the old man said. "Come home and take your throne, or watch us burn this house and everyone in it to ash." Amara looked at Kang Dai. "Don't do it," Kang Dai begged, not looking back. "Amara, don't." Amara let go of Gino's hand, pushing him gently toward his father. She stepped forward, her face changing. The fear vanished. The maid vanished. The queen vanished. Something else took their place, something ancient. "If I come with you?" Amara asked, her voice steady. "My husband and son live?" "They live," the old man nodded. "But you never see them again." Amara turned to Kang Dai. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. "I love you," she whispered. "Take care of Gino." "No!" Kang Dai screamed, lunging for her. But she was already walking. She walked past him, toward the open door, toward the snow, toward the army of killers who were now her subjects. As she reached the threshold, she stopped and looked back one last time. "You saved me once, Kang Dai," she said, the door closing slowly between them. "Now, let me save you." The heavy doors slammed shut. Kang Dai stood alone in the silence, his son crying at his feet, his gun useless in his hand, realizing the terrifying truth. He hadn't married a maid. He had married a monster. And now, to get her back, He would have to go to war with the entire world.